Hey, this is Dr. Greg Steinberg, and welcome to the Links Report, where we talk about the golf swing, the mental game, and everything in between. And I'm joined, like usual, with my co-host, Mark Harmon, the guru of swing. How we doing tonight, Mark?
I'm doing pretty good, Greg, and you are too kind to call me a guru of anything, really.
Well, that might be true, but we'll go with that. But hey, so this week we had the RSM Classic at Sea Island. And man, the this was the last tournament to get your fully exempt PGA card. So there was a lot of pressure put on these players to get their tour card. And what's interesting that we could talk about is this year went from 125 for being fully exempt to 100. What happened there? Why did they make that change? Why did the PGA Tour make that change, do you think, Mark?
Well, according to what I've read, the PGA Tour wants to have a more streamlined product. They want to make the tour more competitive. So if you have fewer players who are eligible to play, that means, maybe 40, 50 guys no longer have their tour cards, and they're going to have to go back to the Corn Ferry Tour to earn their status back to the PGA Tour that way. So they're trying that. They also want to have smaller fields next year. Instead of 156 players maximum in the summertime, they're going to go down to 144. Again, streamlining the product. And they also want to get the better players playing more often with each other as well. So if you got players ranked outside the top 100, technically they're not the best players. The tour is kind of thinking, why would we want them in the field? But Greg, we all know anybody who's one of the 2 or 3 thousand best players in the world is an unbelievably great player. So personally, I think this is the wrong move from the tour when every other sport is expanding. The PGA Tour is contracting. To me, it makes no sense, but that's the way they're doing it.
It sure makes no sense to the guy that finished 124 this year or 101, that's for sure. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, think about it. Last year, they knew if they were like 123 or 124, they got their fully exempt card. Now it's a big dogfight. And I know Justin Thomas, they were interviewing him this weekend, and of course, they were talking about his surgery and how he's doing, and he's taking his time. But he made a really important comment about pressure, and he goes, people just don't get the pressure these guys are under to get their card. It's just amazing pressure. They got to hit every quality shot they can, and it's true. The pressure's on, and do they step up? I know Castillo basically was had an amazing front nine, and then he just couldn't pull it through. I follow him because I went to the University of Florida, so it's good to see a Gator, playing well. I think he's a player. He'll probably get his fully exempt card by next year. But it's interesting. It's always interesting to the last tournament to see if these who's going to make it, who's not going to make it. And there was definitely some big name profile guys that lost their card, and there's some new guys that got their card. But it's amazing how much pressure these guys are on. We see everybody sees the top 20 guys, and they're constantly in the top 20, but they don't appreciate the guys that are on the bubble, how much pressure they really feel.
Yeah, and the thing about pro golf is every shot is so precious, as we all know, because if you look at it this way, a 72 hole golf tournament is often decided by one or two strokes out of maybe 260 to 270 taken. That's a razor thin margin of error that you have, whether you're going to win or lose a golf tournament. And the same thing goes for making the cut. And there's an old saying in golf, in pro golf anyway, that the difference between winning a tournament and missing the cut is often sometimes razor thin. And I've experienced that myself where I feel like my scores aren't really good, but I am so close to playing really well. So I understand that sentiment exactly. And that's just the margin of error on the PGA Tour. It's so razor thin that, anybody who's ranked 100th in the world can beat maybe not Scotty Scheffler, but pretty much anybody else on a given day.
Yeah, and it was interesting. Justin Thomas was talking about how he typically reflects on his rounds, and he, looks at the bad decisions and the good decisions he makes, and he says sometimes a good round versus a bad round is just one bad decision.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting how you pointed that out. But I know you interestingly that the audience doesn't know, but you do some caddying, and you caddied at the Pro Am, right, for the RSM. Tell the viewers how you go about doing that, because you're not a professional caddy, and then who you caddied for, or what
Right.
group you caddied for.
Right. So I have a friend of mine, and he's a PGA professional, and he likes to caddy there every year in the Pro Am. And I just mentioned to him I'd like to try that sometime, and he said, "Well, I'll get you on the list." So he did. But I've also caddied at the RBC Heritage Tournament at Hilton Head Island, and how I got on the list to do that is I simply contacted the tournament itself. Every tournament has a tournament office. You can contact them and ask how it's done. And if they need caddies, even if they don't need caddies, they'll point you to the person in charge of that. And that person makes a decision whether you can get on the list or not. Of course, they
But
want you to.
you're caddying for the Pro Am, not for the
Right. I'm
main
not caddying
tournament.
for the pro. I'm caddying for an amateur in the Pro Am. That is
Yeah, an
correct.
amateur in the Pro Am.
Correct.
And so really anyone could do that. So if they have like a tournament coming to their hometown, they
Mm-hmm.
could try to get on the list and
Uh-huh.
caddy for an amateur on the Pro Am, and usually make what, about $150, right? Right
Yeah,
around there.
it depends. So, for example, at the RBC Heritage, the tournament itself pays you $100 plus whatever tip you get, which is normally anywhere from $50 to $150. At the RSM down at Sea Island, the tournament does not pay you, but the players are told to give at least $125 tip. So, uh, and not only that, that's the first time I've ever been to the Seaside course. The first time I've been to Sea Island, it might be one of the most spectacularly beautiful courses I've ever seen in my entire life. I was totally blown away, especially the back nine there. So, for those of you who can afford it, it's a little bit pricey, but if you can afford it and like to take a golf vacation, I would highly recommend it.
So who was the pro in your group, and what were your impressions?
Well, before I answer that, I'm going to tell you who the amateur was in my group. In fact, the amateurs in all our group were members of the famous Savannah Bananas baseball team.
Savannah Banana. Yep.
And they were really cool guys. They were a pleasure to be around, and they were just wonderful. And the
And they're
pro,
getting pretty famous, aren't they?
they are, yeah, they've got the. In fact, this is a funny story. Oftentimes, the fans would stop them to get their autographs while we were playing the pro am, and they totally ignored our pro, who happened to be Rico Hoey. Now he did sign his fair share of autographs too, but Rico went to the University of Southern California in your backyard, having grown up in Los Angeles. Rico was a fantastic guy. He just so nice to all of us. He engaged in conversation, even with a lowly pro am caddy such as myself. And I tell you, the one
He
thing,
was in the lead right after the
he was
first
in the lead
round.
after the first round. He kind of faded away a little bit after that. But what was very impressive about him, Greg, was his ball striking that day was impeccable. And if you look at the PGA Tour stats, he's among the best players in ball striking statistics. Where he falls a little bit short is his putting. He's ranked 190th something. And if you can't putt on the PGA Tour, you can stay on the tour, but it's kind of hard to make a mark out there.
Yeah, ball striking is important, like but you're not going to really win if you're not a great putter. And people don't appreciate that not only these guys on the tour are great ball strikers and they drive the ball, but they're the best putters in the world as well.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yes.
guys that are winning.
Yeah.
So I know you've done some of the research on the winner
Mm-hmm.
this weekend. What do you think about the winner, and why do you think he won this weekend?
Well, Sami Välimäki is his name. He's from Finland. He is from Nokia, Finland, which is a couple hours from Helsinki. And he's the first Finnish player to ever win on the PGA Tour. So, congratulations to him. A little bit of background about him. He won twice on the DP World Tour, formerly known as the European Tour. And he got his PGA Tour card through qualifying on the DP World Tour, which is another reason why they dropped the number of exemptions from 125 down to 100. They got so many players now they got to make room for. They got to make room for 10 players coming off the DP2 World DP World Tour every year. They've got to make room for the PGA Tour University graduates. They got to make room for more Korn Ferry graduates. So that's one of the reasons Sammy is on the PGA Tour. And he had some couple good tournaments earlier this year, but he really broke through. And I think one of the reasons he won is because he's just such a solid player. And you've got to be solid to win on the PGA Tour. And he's used to winning as well. We talked about that in the previous two podcasts, where if you're used to winning, it really can carry over to the PGA Tour.
Am I wrong? Didn't he go to school in the States?
I don't think he did. That's the part that I do. I just think he
Oh,
turned pro out, which a lot of
yeah.
European tour players do. Yes, a lot of them are coming over to the United States and playing collegiate golf now, but a lot of them also turned pro right away, like Rory McIlroy did. But a funny
Yeah.
story about Sammy Valimaki, in researching his background, he won a number of events on something in Europe called the Pro Golf Tour. Does that name ring a bell?
I'm not quite sure why.
Because that is the exact same name of the tour that Happy Gilmore played on, the
Oh, yeah,
Pro
that's
Golf
right.
Tour.
It's the Happy Gilmore tour. That's where they got it from, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I don't know. It used to be called something else. They just decided to change the name over there to the Pro Golf Tour. So I thought that was kind of funny.
You know what I noticed about Sammy this weekend and why he
Mm-hmm.
won is he put the pedal to the metal.
Mm-hmm.
When he was in the lead, he didn't play conservative. He played even more aggressive. He was firing at all the pins, and I think that's a good lesson for the viewers is that you got to be aggressive. And I think when you're aggressive, you're more confident. I think when you start playing conservative, you start playing by not to lose. He was playing to win, and that was his mentality. And I think his play showed it. I mean, he was firing at the pins. He's made a lot of birdies. And of course, he picked his spots, but he was definitely not playing conservative. And he was, he was playing out. He thought he could win, and of course he did. But it was interesting how he was playing to win. And a lot of times when these guys have never won before, they play not to lose. They play conservative. They want the other guys to make mistakes. But in this case, he wasn't making any mistakes. He was playing to win. So that is really a powerful mentality that I think the viewers can take from the winner this weekend.
Yeah. And you mentioned he was not playing conservatively. And I think a lot of that also because not only his mindset, Greg, but also he had to shoot 23 under to win. It's not like a US Open where, you might be able to win with one or two under or even one or two over, where you can afford to let the other guy make mistakes. So when the scores are low like that, if you have a conservative mentality, you're just going to get run over.
Yeah, and there was a couple easy holes there, but it's not an easy course. So 23 under is pretty tough.
Yes.
But speaking about winners, let's switch gears here. Go to the LPGA.
Mhm.
One winner that we expected to win all the time was Nelly Korda, and she didn't win this year. It's hard to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Maybe the expectations were too great. Maybe she's doing too many commercials. I know she's getting a lot of contracts outside of golf. Maybe she's getting a little distracted.
Mhm.
It's hard to know, but it's definitely a point where it's not her game that has changed. It's her mental game that's changed for
Yeah.
sure. What do you think has changed in her mental game that didn't
Well,
allow Nelly to win this year?
there could have been the expectation factor as well, but I also heard on the radio that she changed shafts in her irons this year in order to try to hit the ball higher so it would land softer on the green. And that could have played a part in it. I think the mental game played a much greater role. Maybe she got complacent a little bit. Maybe she didn't put the work in. But if she did put the work in and she didn't get complacent and her mind was in a good spot, it just goes to show how tough golf can be. If you're just a little bit off, you go from winning, as we said earlier, to not making cuts. Now, that didn't happen to her. She had a number of top 10 finishes this year, but she just didn't win. I fully expect her to win next year.
Yeah, what do
Multiple
you think is
times.
going to change next year? She's going to maybe practice more, or the expectations are a little
I
off for next year?
I hope she practices a little bit more because you cannot, as a sports psychologist, someone who's an expert in motor learning, you know more about that than I would. But I almost think you can't practice too much. I mean, yeah, you can burn yourself out, but if you're not burning yourself out mentally or physically, I say practice as much as you can.
Well, I actually think, some people can handle she was like the face of the LPGA, right?
Mhm.
Tiger Woods can handle being the face of the PGA, but I don't think everyone can handle that. And I think it was expectations. I think she felt a lot more pressure this year to repeat a great, fantastic year. And people don't appreciate how expectations from others, the press, friends, yourself, the coach, put so much pressure on you. And that pressure then relates to, being a little tighter, not enjoying it as much,
Mhm.
feeling that anxiety and can just, like you said, a couple strokes around and it's over. And, that's probably
Mhm.
where she was at.
Yeah. And one thing I want to talk about is let's talk about the winner of the CME Group final that they had on the LPGA Tour. Gino Thitikul, her formerly known as Athaya, but I think Gino's her nickname. Second year in a row, she's won this tournament, and with it, the $1 million plus first place prize. She is an absolute superstar. Now, she hasn't won a major championship yet. She lost in a playoff early this year in the Evian Championship in France, but she's just 22 years old. And it just goes to show you on the LPGA Tour, Greg, it seems like if you haven't made your mark by the time you're 22, 23, maybe 24 at the latest, you're never going to make your mark. Why do you think that on the women's game is so much younger than the men's game?
Well, it's hard to know, but I'll relate it to tennis. A lot of the younger ladies can win on the tennis. And I think it has a lot to do with strength. I
Mm-hmm.
think, guys that are 18, they're just not as strong as guys that are 23. I mean, they're strong, but, and I think women, the strength factor is not such a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a factor, so they can hit it just as far. I think another factor is they're just more emotionally mature. So at 22, they're really mature, where guys, you need to be emotionally mature to win on the PJ Tour or the LPGA Tour. But I think women mature for sure a little bit earlier, and I think that's a big factor as well.
Yeah, we just don't see hardly any late bloomers on the LPGA Tour at all. And so we still see it occasionally on the PGA Tour, but even on the PGA Tour, the winners are getting younger and younger, as evidenced by Michael Brandon a few weeks. We see Michael Brennan a few weeks ago, coming right off PGA Tour in Latino America and just bypassed Corn Ferry Tour and won on a sponsor exemption out in Utah. So, but we've seen young winners before on the PGA Tour, most notably Jack Nicklaus won the U.S. Open as a rookie at age 22. Jerry Pate did the same thing. Tiger Woods also, obviously, Jordan Spieth. So we've seen young players win on the PGA Tour in years past, but the LPGA Tour just seems like there's just no late bloomers at all.
So speaking about the tour coming up in 2026, what are some of your predictions? Who do you think's gonna maybe bloom, as we might say,
Mm-hmm.
that we haven't seen win before?
Well, the number one player coming off the Corn Ferry Tour is a guy named Johnny Kiefer. By all accounts, this guy is the real deal.
He
And
finished in the top 10, right, this week?
I'm not sure. I don't recall
Yeah.
seeing that, but
Yeah,
I
he
did.
he did he did really well this week.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Wonderful for him. Yeah, he's the real deal. So I'd look for Johnny Kiefer to make his mark, possible rookie of the year stuff. Michael Brennan, I don't know if by winning he can be eligible for rookie of the year next year. I think he can be. So that's another player to look out for. Jake Knapp of the younger players. Now he won a tournament a couple years ago, and he hasn't quite gotten to the level that a lot of people think he should get, but he's really a long hitter, so he's someone to look out for. I think beyond that, you got the obvious names: Scotty Scheffler, Roy McIlroy. They turn in great seasons year after year after year. And one thing about Scotty Scheffler is a lot of people say, "Oh, you can't compare him to Tiger Woods." Well, if you actually compare the last 2 years to what Tiger Woods did, he's equal to what Tiger's doing. Now, of course, Tiger did it over a much, much longer period, and that remains to be seen with Scotty Scheffler. But I think everybody should appreciate Scotty Scheffler for what he's done the last couple, 3 years. It is very much Tiger esque. And so
Yeah. And
you appreciate
speaking
that.
about Tiger, one of my favorite tournaments coming up is the father son.
Hmm?
I don't know if Tiger is going to play with Charlie this year, but we can only hope
Yeah.
that happens. No one knows yet if Tiger's up to par to play, but maybe he doesn't have to play so well. I'm sure Charlie can hold his own now and
Mhm.
carry the team.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to play either. It's just so sad about Tiger how his body's failed him. For whatever reason, some people think it was the military type training, maybe just how much reps he put into his golf swing. Who knows? But as great as Tiger has been throughout his entire career, I just can't help but think that he could have won 20 or more majors and easily broke Sam Snead's record, but obviously we'll never know. I'm going to make a crazy prediction that if Tiger can somehow come back healthy or reasonably healthy, I think he'll break Sam Snead's record. I think he'll win one more PGA Tour
One
major.
more. Do you think he'll play the Champions Tour
He plans to, and I think that would be a wonderful shot in the arm for that tour.
and drive a cart or walk?
He's definitely going to drive a cart, is what he says.
Yeah, because they talk about him. He can hit the ball, but the walking part is the
Yeah,
difficult part. His back stiffens up and
yeah.
his knees, and
Hmm.
he's definitely had some surgeries.
Yeah.
But we got to see him play. One of the greatest golfers of all time, and for a while there, it was pretty fun watching Tiger
Hmm.
Woods dominate. He was like on his own tour. It was
Yeah.
the Tiger Tour, and everybody else was on like the other tour.
Okay. I appear to have lost my video feed. Hopefully, you can still hear me on the audio.
Yeah, we can, but it's all right because we got a good view of myself on the main camera. But I would say, what's some of your closing thoughts for the end of the season here?
Uh, the closing thoughts is I think that the PJ Tour is making a mistake by contracting. I think they need to continue with the status quo. There's just when every other sport is expanding because there's more good players, there's more cities that want teams. The PGA Tour is contracting. I mean, it just makes zero sense to me. I think that Nelly Korda is going to have another good season. I think we're going to have a couple players on the LPGA Tour we don't even know about now who are going to play very well. Lottie Wode, who went to one of your alma maters, Florida State, great players, already won on the LPGA Tour. So I think you got to look for her as well. Um, I'd like to see Jordan Spieth do something this year. This is a real crossroads year for him, I believe. Um, he was messing around with his golf swing a few years ago, maybe in an effort to get more distance. And of course, that backfired miserably. And he has not been Jordan Spieth ever since. Yeah, he's won a couple tournaments, the RBC Heritage, and he won in Texas, but nothing like when he was younger. And it's a real shame. So I really think Jordan Spieth, this will be a very telling year for him.
Yeah, and at the end of the season, they used to call it the funny season. But it's kind of like a nice time for the players to kind of rejuvenate, get kind of maybe work on their game a little bit, and take it easy, uh, with because they always say the schedule's nonstop.
Mhm.
And so, but again, I think what they can do too is the ones that didn't play that well, maybe this is the time they figure out, and reflect
Mhm.
what they did wrong. Like Justin Thomas was saying, the decisions they made, what were the one or two decisions they made did not allow them to win. So I
Mhm.
think if I could, do some recommendations to the tour players in the next, 6 weeks that are really taking this time off, do a lot of reflection, and serious reflection, and really evaluate maybe if you didn't have the greatest season, why that is, and then work on those. We might not say flaws, but work on some of those weaknesses, and of course, work on your strengths. But hopefully, with the reflection, you will definitely get better. And with that being said, this has been the Links Report with Dr. Greg Steinberg and Mark Harmon, where we talk about the golf swing, the mental game, and everything in between. So it's been a great night. Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate it, Greg. We'll see you next time.